I'm going to call this meeting to order and stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United
States of America,
for which it
and
stands,
to the republic for which it stands,
one nation,
one nation, under God, indivisible,
liberty,
liberty and
justice
justice
for all.
for all.
Can I have a motion to approve the present agenda?
Motion.
So moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Okay, tonight we're going to move right into executive session. Be it resolved, the Board of Education enter executive session to discuss the medical, financial, credit, or employment history of a particular person or corporation, or matters relating to appointment, employment, promotion, demotion, discipline, suspension, dismissal, or removal of a particular person or corporation. Can I have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Motion from anyone. Thank you. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
What's the aye for in favor?
And everybody was in favor.
Everybody in favor. Okay. Then we are going to enter executive session at this time. So all the members, you're going to leave the public meeting. For the public watching, I'm estimating executive session to be about 20 to 30 minutes. I'm just guessing. So just so you're aware, okay?
Wait
So
till you have
everybody
to appoint the district clerk
leave.
pro temp.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Okay, motion to appoint district clerk pro temp. Can I have a motion?
Motion.
Can I have a
Second.
second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Okay, so now we're all going to leave meeting. Okay, so I'm about to begin the meeting, okay, everyone?
Yes.
Are we all here?
Denise is here.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, it looks like we're all good. Okay, so we are going to make a motion to return to open session.
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, we are all back in open session right now. I just want to apologize to the public. It took much longer than I had anticipated. I'm sorry about that. But we are now back in open session, and we are going to be moving on actually straight to board comment. But I do just want to mention that as allowed by Executive Order 202.1, there is no public comment on the agenda tonight. However, any members of the public currently watching the meeting are asked to direct their comments via email to our district clerk, Debbie Pottenberg, at pottenbergd@chatham.k12.newyork.us. Her contact information is also on our district website. Okay, so back to board comment. Would any board members like to make a comment at this time? No comments?
I'd like to make one comment, actually.
Okay, go ahead, Matt.
You know, it appears that we're getting perhaps some increased public participation with the Zoom meetings.
Okay.
Worth considering how we might telecast when we return after emergency.
Okay. After executive, or is that what you mean?
Well, when the executive orders expire and we're going back to a normal meeting format, we may want to consider some way to increase the public participation there.
Yes, definitely. Okay. Are there any other comments?
I don't see anything on our agenda about graduation. Are there any plans yet for graduation, or is that being taken up later in Sal's?
Sal, you want to take that?
Hey, you want me to do it now? I was so graduation is still scheduled for the 26th, regardless of when we officially end school, and we're going to be making an announcement in the next day or so. But I will let you know that as late as this afternoon, John Justin and I met with some local officials to take a look at some different locations in town. And John is working with, I believe there's some people on the call as well, some students. He's working with Student Senate and some of the representatives from the senior class, I believe on Thursday. And I think once we announce the plans, people are going to be pleased. It'll be a celebration of this unique class, and it'll be a community celebration, but it'll be done safely given the current guidelines. And I think we're going to be able to find a good mix. So more information coming out in the next week or so to answer that more specifically.
I had one more on my list to ask tonight. The Chromebooks, are the children going to keep them for the summer? Or hasn't it been decided?
No, I believe we are going to allow the students to keep them over the summer. We think that we're going to try to provide opportunities for those students who may need a little extra instruction or exposure to educational materials would have that because of the device they would keep at home.
Okay, thank you. And the delivering the meals, that goes on through the summer?
So to be determined. Right now, we're trying to get some clarification from the governor. Right now, the way our employment contracts are, which includes transportation and food service, those would end when the school year ends.
Right.
So there's two factors that we're waiting for further guidance on. One, and I'll be careful, it's not that we shouldn't do it because it's a great thing to do with our families. We just don't know if the deadline or that service will stop coincident to when school stops, June 30th, or will be mandated to do it throughout the summer.
Okay.
I will tell you that I've been in several conversations that regardless of what we do, there's a huge community response to ensuring that families have access to food. So even if we don't continue the delivery of meals past the end of the instructional year, there are already plans to publicize all the different ways that families who are in need can obtain through various community agencies food throughout that time period.
Thank you. Good news.
Any other board comments?
I have one more.
Yep, go ahead, Matt.
I'm curious where we're getting the voter lists for the mail-out ballots. Are those previous voters, registered school district voters, or all voters that we're getting from the county in the district area?
So good question. You're probably, I don't know if that question is based on the fact that there's been some local media where some districts are doing just previous voters, which is a subset of all the people that can vote. I'm not going to pass judgment, but we're not doing that. We received the list from the county of all registered voters, and tomorrow, and I'd have to check the time, there's also an open period, Deb, where people who don't believe they're registered can come safely to MED to register to vote. Deb, you want to? Oh, yeah, you're muted, or maybe, Deb, you can just yell to me. What time is that tomorrow night? 5 to 7? 3 to 7. So from 3 to 7 tomorrow at MED, if anybody's watching tonight and would like to register, that's also been publicized through various media outlets as well. Just to give you some context, we believe the ballots are scheduled to be mailed on May 26th. They should be in voters' hands in 2 to 3 days. We believe they'll have them by about May 29th. That gives them a few days to complete it and put it back in. It's a full packet. The packet includes a self-addressed business reply envelope. So they take their ballot, they put it into a sealed envelope. That envelope goes into another envelope, and that gets mailed back to us. That's all being mailed out on May 26th. If you remember, the time frame to have this all happen is fairly compressed. The other thing that we're working on is that the newsletter will go to the printer. We were waiting for tonight. Tonight you're going to hopefully approve a budget. We're waiting on that. Tomorrow morning that goes to final layout, and then to the printer 2-3 days, and we'll get that out in the mail just a little bit after the ballots get out, but hopefully in time for the voters will have several days to see the newsletter before they have to vote. We'll also get that information out by video and by website and by social media. But that's kind of, for some context, that's what we're working on and the tight timeframes to meet the deadlines. And remember, folks, that there's a budget hearing, a required budget hearing will be next Tuesday, the 26th at 7 p.m. And unlike this public meeting, at that meeting, participants who would like to address the board may do so. We will promote them during the conference to a level for which they can ask questions in the public hearing. Hope that's, if there's anything else, let me know.
Okay. Are there any other board comments? Okay, then we're going to move on to superintendent reports with the updated budget. Sal, you're muted.
Yep. I'm going to start, Mike, with your presentation. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, let me just advance the, let me get that up and running. Give me 32 seconds to just share my screen again. And then give me another second to get the PowerPoint where it should be. Sorry, hang on. Bear with me.
Denise, are you with us yet?
Oh, yes, yes. I wouldn't miss it.
Hang on.
Okay.
Sorry about that. I just need another second to cue this up the correct way. No, we don't need that slide. Okay, so let me just adjust the screen here. And okay, I think we're just about ready. It doesn't have to be perfect, I guess, but okay, Mike, is that?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Looks good. All right. So tonight we're going to go through the final budget. I'm going to talk about the topics addressed here. We met last night with Finance Committee to recommend the budget. We discussed the tax cap and levy, which I'll go through. I'm going to talk a little bit about the impact of COVID and some of the things that are going on. The delay, and the delay for this this budget. I'll go through the state aid and the revenues, special education. I'll briefly update, go through the expenses, then we'll talk about the tax cap. So Sal, can you go to the next slide, please? So obviously, everyone that's been around, this has been a major change this year with the budget. With the impact of COVID, we were almost through our budget process anyway. We were going to go to the last meeting with some, special ed and any adjustments. So we did get through most of it. We had people speak from January, until we were closed. But this year's different. The budget, I discussed this at the last meeting. There's 3 measurement periods. So the governor has from April 1st to April 30th, that already went by, to look at the operating tax receipts. If they're less than 99%, or if expenses are greater than 101, they can make adjustments. Then they're going to have May to June, and then July to December. So this is a little different. Usually we get budget numbers, we know where we stand, but now everything's up in the air into our next budget year. So we do have to approve a budget this week. So our guidance told us to wait until last Friday, because the budget director and the governor, we were supposed to get some projections on that first marking period, April 1st to April 30th, and kind of what reductions we might be looking at. And what happened, we waited till Friday. Most districts waited, almost every district, and we didn't get any guidance. So what the governor said on Friday was, without any federal aid, we could be looking at 20% reduction. If you look on that slide, that's a possible $962,000 if that was taken off on our operating aid. So that's a significant deduction to all districts. Right now, he didn't want to put a number out. He's saying he's pretty much putting on the federal government, saying New York State really needs a federal aid package. There's going to be devastating cuts. Right now, the House voted for aid to states, but now it's in the Senate. They're on recess, so I'm not anticipating seeing anything until maybe in June. That's what we're hoping to see, what we're talking about. If the federal government comes through. My personal opinion, I think they'll come through with some money. It is an election year, but we'll see what that is. So Chatham, actually, over the last 3 weeks, administrative team met. We have a contingency plan we put in place, anticipating some reduction. We thought we were going to see something last Friday. So we do have a plan in place. We've had our reserve plan in place for a number of years. That's our savings plan, and how we actually we set ourselves up to handle major catastrophes and major problems. We can't do that for long term, but we can handle this. We also we looked at supplies, materials, conferences, and possible staff reductions. So we came up with a number of items to meet these reductions if and when they come, depending on the amount. We are using a multi-year planning approach. We've done that since I've started here, and that's based on our reserve plan. We can't use everything in 1 year because then we won't have the money the next year to make up for that. So it's going to be a balanced approach between savings and all the items I mentioned. So right now, since we didn't get any guidance, we're going to go out with our pretty much original budget that we had that I discussed at the last meeting. I'll update the one slight change, but we do have a plan, so you feel comfortable. We do have a plan in place to handle it. And this is going to be probably a 3-year process that we're going to be, dealing with this. Okay, Sal. So state aid, this is exactly the same as the last budget meeting we had. I went over the state aid numbers. This is the one I was going to make the adjustments depending on what the governor came out with, but he didn't come out with anything. So that pandemic adjustment was the original adjustment way back when we started. That was a smaller number that I was very confident about we could meet. As I just stated on the last slide, now we might be looking at up to $900,000, so somewhere in that range. The federal government did cover that first 192,000, so that was restored. So that kept basically our operating aid flat. There's no increases this year for districts. That was kept flat. Remember, our foundation aid or operating aid, I do show the net adjustment of, we have special ed beds, special ed students that are residentially placed. We pay at 20% of that fee, which is a small amount. That's included. That's where they take it out. But otherwise, that number would have been flat. As you look at the other numbers, same as the last meeting, you can see really what the increase, 413,000, a lot of it's driven by the building aid. So remember, we kind of wanted a level tax cap. So we matched our building expenses with our debt. You'll see on the expense slide, there was a larger increase in debt, but it matches out. So we were able to achieve that level tax cap, which I'm very thankful for. We don't have a very high tax cap this year. So that worked out very well. So this is basically the same slide as last meeting. Okay, so now the summary of the revenues. So state aid, I just mentioned, that's a big piece of our money, but really that increase is just the building. We're closing out these building projects, that building aid, it's going to match with an expense. Other revenue, so the other revenue area is consists of different items. It consists of penalties on taxes when people pay their taxes late. That's about $36,000. We have our continuing ed and driver ed in there. That's about $28,000. I want to mention that money though is offset with expenses. That pretty much is a break-even program. So if that didn't run, we would the expenses wouldn't be there, so that would wash out. Payment in lieu of taxes, we still have 2 years left on behind Ligonia's Plaza up on the hill, the senior citizens home. That's $13,000. And then we have a health rebate. Usually we don't use health rebates when it's one-time money, but to balance this budget, because it's a tougher time, we're getting this paid over 2 years, so we're using $39,000 of that. And then the big item that, why we have a decrease is interest income. Interest income, we budget $115,000. We're on schedule to make $200,000 this year, but the rates have drastically dropped. So, and I'm anticipating, just like in 08, rates came down significantly. So I took out $55,000 in what we projected in that to equal that out. So in the end, we're down $15,000, but we're using a little bit of a health reserve rebate. It's only over 2 years, so I'm gonna have to fill that gap after the 2 years, but it's part of our planning. The Medicaid stayed flat. This is money we receive for IEP students that are Medicaid eligible when they receive physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech services. And this has been right around that target we've been receiving, historically, so I kept that flat. The big item we discussed last night was property taxes. This number shown here is actually going under the tax cap. This is a 1.67% increase. We're allowed to go within the tax cap of 1.72. We had a discussion last night, and I'll show on the the other slides. Maybe going up to the tax cap, or if we go a little less. I think over the last 9 years, we've actually come under a little bit, 5 of those years. So we're trying to balance the taxpayers' needs with our educational needs. So I was happy to say we came in slightly lower because of what's going on, not just with the school, but the community in general. It's tougher times. Appropriated fund balance, since I started 8 years ago, we've had that money in the budget. This is contingent money. and then we apply it to reduce the tax levy the following year. So that has stayed the same at this time. And then the reserves other, that's a line that we will be utilizing. We will utilize some reserves if the, if we aren't made, if there are cuts to state aid. And that's one of the targets we would hit when the governor comes out with his projections of what's going to happen. So total revenue up 2.45% or $773,000. Special education, we talked a little bit more last night. I'll just briefly update. So I talked with Brian Simon. The one benefit we did have of, having this delayed is that he goes through annual reviews. He's still doing that now. So we get the best, closest as possible the snapshot for next year with changes. So $22,000 or 0.65 increase. It's extremely low increase. This is one area that can fluctuate greatly. So we're fortunate, helping in a more difficult year, balancing our budget. He did have 2 staff reductions due to less student service needs. So this is not based on COVID. These aren't job cuts. This is based on the students no longer need these services. So it's a teaching assistant and a half-time teacher aide will be reduced. And then there was also the main thing that happened from when I originally talked about special ed when I was rolling over costs and why this is much lower is we had a decrease in some program costs. We had a higher end student move back. I'm going to finish out with homeschooling. And we had a graduation this year, and we had another district student move in district. So that's keeping the expenses much lower than in some of the previous years. So now the expenses. This besides the really major change from we went through all these over the last since January on. We went through each part of this. Nothing these haven't changed. This is really the budget we had. Except for that, what I talked about, the special ed numbers coming in that brought that number lower, as you can see on the instructional side. So remember, general support, this is going up roughly $93,000. This is the board, superintendent, business office, the auditing. This is operations and maintenance, and BOCES administrative costs. The big increase here, as we discussed in the past, about $56,000 of this $92,000 is that we were receiving a 5-year credit, OPEB credit from BOCES. They were giving back each district some of their OPEB reserves, and that credit expired this year. So that $56,000 came onto our books. Otherwise, expenses and general support would be a little less than 1%. On the instructional side, we had a retirement. Remember, this is all pre-K through 12 teachers, all materials, professional development. It's the principals, secretaries, all of their materials and supplies. It's athletics, IT, guidance. So this is obviously this should be the big chunk of money because this is for students. That's only going up 0.99%. Remember, we did hit one of the reasons is we took out $200,000 in contingent money in salary lines. We always said our contingent money would be we would be pulling that money out in more difficult times, and we're starting to do that. So we did reduce. We're starting to use some of that money. Transportation is the same as last time when Steve Alinick went through this, $51,000, and everything was held flat there except for contractual salary increases. And we had a couple midday runs, that's why that bumped up a little bit, but everything else was held flat. Employee benefits came in favorable this year. In the health insurance side, some of the years we had 8-9% health insurance increases, which dramatically increased on the budget this year, average 4% for active employees. So that did help. We got a benefit on that, which was great. That was offset a little bit on the teacher retirement. Employee retirement system rates have increased. Teacher retirement system rates, as I discussed previously, they increased 8.86 to 9.53, and then the employee retirement system rates, the non-instructional increased like 0.2%. That is one concern we're going to watch going forward. Remember, it's based on 5 years of the stock market. This increase happened before COVID, so they did increase before this was going on. We obviously had the stock market drop significantly. On positive note, it did come back. It has rebounded, but obviously we're going to see if it goes back down or where it goes. It is still down from the highs. So that will be over the next few years. It's based on 5-year. Historically, those rates kind of go up, and those dollar amounts, if things don't get better, will go up. Debt service, the large increase, 36% or $284,000. We added the principal on from our new capital project we started. But remember, I had the revenue slide. The revenue is offsetting that. So that actually essentially is going to wash out. We matched the revenue and the expense, which helped. It also kept our tax levy stable. The last line, we had interfund transfers. That's the library, cafeteria. And then it's our bus purchases and our $100,000 capital project. If you remember, we had Julie speak from the library and Barb speak from the cafeteria. Those were slight decreases. I think $500 and $1,000. Cafeterias, this is the 5th year in a row we've had a decrease, which was nice to see. But the decrease to this line, 59,000, is really the bus purchase. We have a bus purchase plan, and we did not need a large school bus purchase this year. We're only buying 1 instead of 2. We're also buying a medium and a minivan. So this has helped this year, and we're still fine with our bus fleet. It's part of our program and part of our planning. So that's the decrease of almost 60,000. So total expenses, 2.45, 773, 465 matches right now the revenues. Program highlights. We talked about these positions. Assistant principal replacing the dean of students. We get greater flexibility with the certified administrator for evaluations, district-wide assistance, coordinating the innovative instruction, student engagement, and parent outreach. We also had the school psychologist replace the school counselor. That was a cost neutral. Enhanced skill set to align with the student needs. And same with the network engineer replacing a network aide. That's also cost neutral. Same thing, enhanced skill set to address modern day computing needs. Sal, did you want to talk a little more on that at all?
Sure. Just to kind of reiterate that the administrative team and I carefully looked at positions within the district that we believe by making some changes could add some greater efficiencies. And we felt that having a certificated employee at the middle school to support the principal and be able to do some of these other tasks and be there all 12 months was a benefit to the students. And you'll see later on in the agenda that we're recommending that.
Okay. So this is our historical tax cap and tax levy, which I discussed. So 2020-21, 1.72. I will show a comparison to other districts' tax caps, but we're actually going at 1.67. We're trying to recognize the difficulties everyone's experiencing. As you can see on here, in the 9 years, we've gone under 5. In a couple of years, you can see the 0.66 and 0.89, they were extremely low. So our average rate, everyone says 2%. We've actually been at 1.76 over this time period. So like we stated, we try to balance taxpayers' needs with our educational program. Same thing, the levy allowable, we can go 1.72, and we're recommending 1.67 this year. And then this is a school district, this is tax caps, not what people are going out with. All districts are deciding tonight and tomorrow where they're going to go. I've talked to a lot of the districts, quite a few on here are going real close or at their cap. But obviously you can see the spread, and we always talk about when the governor says 2%, but as you look on this list, there's no 2% at all. Everyone's all over the place because it takes into account 9 factors. You can see the highest 6.09, but you can see actually Rensselaer at negative 3.32. But we're right near the bottom, 1.72. And that was part of our planning and finance and our discussions about balancing our debt with this capital project, the revenues, expenses, so we didn't have a huge spike. That's what some of these spikes are because of that. I'm not sure, is there any other?
No, that's the last slide.
Okay, so that's the budget. That's a summary of everything we've done since the fall. Really heavy on budget since January on. Like I said, we're in a good position because we also have a contingent plan, and we have things in place to handle whatever we get thrown at with possible cuts. So I'm very confident with the budget and with the tax levy.
Rachel, would you like me to pause here in case there's any questions? I can go back to a particular slide.
There is, Craig has a question.
Yeah, I've got a question. Going back to the senior housing pilot, you mentioned 2 years left on it. What does that mean for us? 2 years left on it.
Right now, it's a very small amount up there. It's I think $13,000. It increases 2.5% a year. We've had that for a number of years. It's through the village, and we get our portion. When they fall off the tax rolls, like any pilot, their property comes onto our tax rolls. And when I take the valuation of the property, I have to do that for our auditor. It's very similar amount of money. Won't make any real change.
Okay. That sounds good. And I have one more since I have you. The 5-year average on employee benefits. When does that impact us if say, the market now? And will we see that? I mean, if it bounces right back and it's an average, that may not really affect us much.
Yeah,
or-
the best case scenario is, we had a 35-40% decrease early. We bounced back considerably on that. If we do go back up, for the year, because, they look at their year through June, through the past 5 years. And remember, it's 5-year average, so it's not like one bad year is not going to, destroy you immediately. So if we do bounce back and things get better, and I'm happy to see that we are going up, then we won't get hit as hard. Now, obviously, there's talk about, are we going to have a bounce right back down? There's a million questions right now with what's going on. Obviously, if that happens like in 08, we had rates like we do have not, we have now. TRS is 9.53. Remember, a few years later, it went down a few years after the 08 crisis, and it shot up to 17%. So that is going to be something we're going to have to watch over the next. And remember, we have reserves for this, the ERS, and I'm going to recommend to the board in June to add the TRS reserve. We already have an ERS reserve, so we have reserves also to help offset some of this with the with spikes in the stock market. So let's cross our fingers that we pull through with the market, but we'll see where we go from there.
Thank you, Mike.
Okay, are there any other questions? Alrighty. Okay, if there are no other questions, we're gonna move on to board committee reports and go to Pat Wilson with Finance Committee report. Are you there, Pat?
Yeah, you're muted, Pat. Hang on.
Denise, are you still with us, Denise?
Oh, yes, thank you, I am. I'm listening to every syllable.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, can you unmute?
Yeah.
Pat?
I'm trying to get to Pat. Hang on. I think I can unmute her.
Oh, she just unmuted. Okay.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, there we
Yes.
go. Thank you.
Okay. I'm going to make this quick because Mike just pretty much covered everything in depth on what we finalized yesterday at our last Finance Committee meeting, which had been delayed and postponed a couple of times, waiting on word from the state, which never came through. We have been trying. We definitely tried to be very conservative in coming up with some final numbers this year, knowing that this is not going to be a good year for everyone. So hopefully, we've done our job, and it's the best we can come up with. There's so many unknowns at this point in time. That's all I really have to comment on.
Okay. Are there any questions for Pat? Okay. Moving on, we're going to go to the policy second readings, and this is on our wellness policies. It's policy 5661 wellness. Does anybody have any questions or comments on the second reading of policy 5661? Okay, does anyone have any questions or comments on the policy 5662 physical wellness? Okay, everybody in agreement these can come back to a final reading in June?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Then we are going to move on to new business. R49, be it resolved that the Board of Education, effective July 1st, 2020, hereby creates the full-time position of assistant principal at the Chatham Middle School. Can I have a motion?
I'll make that
So
motion.
moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. R50, be it resolved that the Board of Education of Chatham Central School District, on the recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools, does hereby grant Michael Stead a leave of absence from his employment in the elementary tenure area for a period of 4 years effective July 1st, 2020 through June 30th, 2024, to accept a position of assistant principal at the middle school in accordance with the letter agreement dated May 12th, 2020. Be it further resolved that the Board of Education of the Chatham Central School District, upon the recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools, does hereby appoint Michael Stead to the position of middle school assistant principal in the assistant principal tenure area pursuant to a 4-year probationary appointment commencing July 1st, 2020 and terminating June 30th, 2024. May I have a motion?
So move, Rachel.
Second.
May I have a second? Okay. Any questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to new business. R51, be it resolved that the Board of Education approve the 2020 to 2021 property tax report card. May I have a motion?
Motion.
So moved.
May I
Second.
have a second? No, thank you. Any questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. R52, be it resolved that the Board of Education adopt the tentative 20 to 2021 educational plan and budget in the amount of $32,356,855. May I have a motion?
So
Motion.
moved.
Second.
May I have a second? Any questions or comments? All in
Good job,
favor?
Mike. Good job, Mike.
That's a good job, Mike. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. R53, be it resolved that the Board of Education approve the closing of the following scholarships with the remaining amounts transferred to an existing active scholarship. The scholarships are
Motion.
listed below in the public comment section. Can I have a motion?
Motion.
Can I have
Second.
a second?
Second.
Any questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay. R54, be it resolved that the Board of Education, acting pursuant to the authority granted by New York General Municipal Law 92, grants to any school district employee idled by the COVID-19 school closure paid leave without deduction from accruals for all and any days the employee is directed by the district from reporting to their work location. This resolution does not restrict the district from requiring any employee to work regular and/or modified work schedules, from requiring any employee to work from home, and/or from requiring any employee to work via an online electronic distance learning or other such platform. The leave granted by the action of the Board of Education shall sunset on the earlier of June 26, 2020, or the discontinuation of the executive order issued by the governor numbered 202.4, or as further modified by the Board of Education. May I have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Second.
All in favor, or any questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. R55, be it resolved that the Board of Education accept the consensus agenda J through L as written. May I have a motion?
Motion.
May I have a second?
Second.
Any questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, we are now at the
I would like to make a comment. I'm sorry. I was
Okay.
delayed.
Okay, go.
Are you thinking the same thing I am, Craig?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna bring it up.
K1.
Oh,
K1, okay.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
And thank you for a great job, Steve.
Congrats on retirement.
Rachel, I also wanted to point out to the board, L2.
Yes, thank
Yes,
you.
thank you, Sal.
We probably, in thinking this through, could have pulled this out of consensus, but I think it'll do. For those that are tuned in, and you'll be hearing more about this in our social media, the Ellsworth Kelly Foundation and Jack Shear have graciously donated $34,000 so that each of the 68 seniors will receive a $500 check from the foundation. And there'll be an accompanied letter, a personal letter that he's written, a very heartfelt, wonderful gesture. He actually, I'll paraphrase a little bit, he attended last year's graduation ceremony with someone that he knew that was graduating, was very moved, and to hear that this year those seniors would not be enjoying the same benefits of a regular graduation. He wanted to do something, a token gesture, and not so token, but a gesture to make sure they knew that they were appreciated, and given the circumstances, they are going through a very unique end of their experience here in Chatham. And this is to acknowledge that. So phenomenal.
Very generous.
Okay. Any other comments? Okay. Are there any items for future agenda tonight? Got a lot on our plate already, eh?
Can we meet at the school in June?
Yeah, I don't know. To be continued.
I just want to make a comment. I hope that we get the word out good tomorrow to our 18-year-olds and older that they're eligible to vote, and they should. I know that they got the opportunity while they were in school to register, but they may not have had the opportunity to sign up at our school district. So I hope that there's a good effort to get that word out.
I think Ms. Keegan is tuned in, and perhaps during one of her lessons this week, she can remind her government students to get out there and help support our district. I'm not telling them how to vote, just telling them that it's available.
And is there a way that we can put something on Facebook so we can send it out, like on our school district website, just to register?
Yes, it's and I'm sorry for yelling to the other room. Deb, we've done that, right? We're everything is published. It appeared I think online in the Chatham paper, the voter registration.
Yep, online Columbia paper.
Online Columbia paper, Register Star, Facebook, and our website.
Okay.
We usually pick up a handful of people. Maybe this year will be different, maybe it won't. But we're trying to give everyone any opportunity to participate. And just, I guess, because we won't be together again till after the vote, polls close at 5 p.m. And so absentee ballots, as I mentioned, are to be mailed on May 26th. They need to be received by 5 p.m. on June 9, not postmarked, received. And they need to be mailed back and received by 5 p.m.
Okay. Are there any other comments?
The results will come out. Tell me when.
Well, so it all depends on voter turnout, right?
Yeah.
We typically get 700-800 people turn out in person. We are mailing close to over 7,000 absentee ballots. So depending on the return, we are going to have a large number of socially distanced poll election people that evening, opening envelopes. We can't open anything until 5:01. Opening envelopes, counting. Everything will be streamed live for transparency. And Deb, depending on how quickly your team can count, we believe that we'll have the results sometime that evening, published perhaps on the website that night. That would be our, our goal, sometime that night.
Great.
Okay. Any other comments?
We'll send Deb coffee.
Lots of
So,
coffee.
reminder that we have a public hearing on the budget, May 26th, similar virtual. The link will be out on the website. I think it is already. That evening, again, the difference will be that people who would like to address the board may, we'll promote them to a participant. And then our final meeting of the year will be Tuesday, June 23rd, where we'll wrap up all the business for the year.
Okay. So let's see here. Are we all
So
good?
then are we being asked to all attend on the 26th? The streaming of,
I
Yeah.
guess
Yeah.
the board can discuss that. We could certainly spread people out. We don't necessarily want to invite the general public. We'll stream for them. But, if the board would like to witness the results, again, I don't know if that's going to be an hour or 4 hours in counting, but we certainly could socially distance the board in the gymnasium. Should you want, I'll leave it up for you guys to discuss.
Are you asking about the vote or are you asking about the public hearing, Beth?
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm asking about the public hearing.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, the public hearing will be done just like this.
Yeah, it'll be the same like in past years. It's just virtual.
Okay.
And then, so essentially, are we letting people like email their questions in first? Or is it just all like if you have a question or a comment, you, as an attendee,
You raise your
how do
hand
they
and
ask,
then I
how do
can,
they ask to communicate? How do we communicate, I guess?
so like right now, I can see the participants, the attendees of the conference, and I can promote them to allow to talk. And so when somebody raises their hand or in the chat indicates that they would like to address the board, I'll give them the floor, privilege of the floor.
Okay, and then they'll be able to speak and we'll be able to see them and everything.
Yes.
Okay.
You got your clock set, Debbie?
We'll
3
be
minutes,
following,
Debbie.
that's a good point. We will follow standard procedures that people have 3 minutes to address the board.
So
Right.
what time will that be starting on the 26th?
6 o'clock.
6
6
p.m.
o'clock, okay.
Okay.
And Rachel, just to be technically accurate, whether you see them or not will be a function as to whether they unmute their video. But the answer is yes, the possibility to see and hear them does exist.
Okay. Got it. Okay, can I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Bye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Have a good night, all.
Good night and thank you.
As
Bye-bye.
well, everyone. Thank you,
Good
Denise.
Night.
Yes.